speaking of that, and then we can do a little transition to the Bears game here because Iisha, do you know which quarterback has the most passing yards in an NFL game this season so far?
So far?
Yeah, this season through 3 weeks, who has the most passing yards in one game?
In one game? I feel like I just saw that somebody passed for a whole bunch today. Dang it.
Well, it was Dak Prescott with 379 today. But what you might have seen before Dak eclipsed him is this is probably the stat you saw. Because before Dak got to 379 today, the quarterback that had the most passing yards in the NFL in a single game this season was Caleb Williams. Today, it's 363. So, he held the mark for like an hour and a half. That was cool. The Bears will probably put up a banner for that in their building because that never happens. But we kind of moved this conversation from the Cowboys to the Bears, who also lost today 21-16. 52 passing attempts for Caleb Williams today. They had 49 plays in the first half and had 0 points. 49 plays and 0 points, which is only a thing possible by the Chicago Bears. They're the only NFL team in the history of the league that could ever pull that type of feat off, but that's what they do. And it all came down. I'm also going to play a game with you guys here. Just curious, football strategy wise, if you have a 4th and goal situation at the 1 yard line, are you, Fran, I'll start with you. Are you pro shotgun or anti shotgun 4th and goal at the 1 yard line?
I would say I'm mostly anti-shotgun. There's a time and place there. You might have the right play call for it, but I would say I'd more often than not, I'd want the guy under center.
Yes.
Zach?
Fran doesn't even understand the situation because you just do the tush push in Philadelphia, so there's like no question about that one. But I'm with Fran. I mean, I'm going under center here. It's just going to help your running game, and isn't that what you're probably going to do on that play?
Yeah,
you think so, Iisha?
Shortage. We are at an under center shortage in the NFL. So,
for
the love of God, at least get him pistol. Jesus.
Oh, don't say that because that's what the Bears did. They got in pistol on. So instead of having the ball 1 yard from the line of scrimmage, we now have the ball about 8 yards from the goal line, I should say. Now we've moved the ball back to 8 yards, and then on top of that, we're running pistol option with a quarterback that did not run the option in college. We are now pulling out playbooks from Pac-12 after dark. Like literally, I don't know what we're doing here. It made absolutely no sense right before halftime. It was one of the worst play calls I've ever seen. In fact, I put on Twitter when this happened earlier today, in 14 years of covering the Chicago Bears, I think this is the worst play call I have witnessed. We've seen a lot of bad play calls in that time. We're now, 8 hours removed from me tweeting that, and I actually feel stronger about that actually was the case. It was that bad. The Bears lost 12 yards. So even in a situation where you're going, the worst case scenario here is, well, they're pinned at their own 1 yard line, and maybe we can get a safety. No, the Bears actually moved the ball back out to the 13 for their opponent in that situation today. It was just that type of day in Indianapolis. The Bears finally finding a way to move the football today. Caleb Williams seemed like took some strides. Rome Odunze had a nice day, 6 catches, 112 yards, and a touchdown. That's the type of production that you're hoping to start to see from Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze, but still it didn't result in enough points. Way too many missed opportunities today. And in a weird way, even on a day where it feels like, okay, this hype seems somewhat justified. Caleb took a step forward. Rome Odunze took a step forward. Yet the Bears are in the same exact place they always are. Defense, relying on the defense. Offensive coordinator, the plan, the play calling, it's all very, very confusing. But I don't even know how this is all possible, but this is what the Bears do. They find a way to not score points even when they move the football, and that was certainly the case today. I don't know how much you guys saw of this game, but I am curious from the more national perspective of what you might have seen from this game in Indy today as the Colts won 21-16.
For me, I would say that the most disappointing thing is just not being able to win in the trenches. Looking at what Indianapolis struggled to do over the first couple of weeks of the season, especially defensively. I know Latu was banged up and ended up playing in this game, but they didn't have DeForest Buckner to be as outmanned as they were up front. I know this is a Chicago Bears O-line that we weren't expecting to be a top 5, top 7, top 8 unit in football, but at least to be an above average unit that could keep Caleb Williams upright. And that has been a struggle throughout most of the season. We all saw that in prime time last week, but on the short week, after kind of a gut check moment a week ago, I was a little disappointed that we weren't able to see that line of scrimmage be won on that side of the football.
Adam, I have a bigger picture question for you because I hear everything you're saying and I get frustration and anger. And I totally understand that. I mean, your rookie quarterback almost throws for 400 yards and you only put up 16 points. That's unacceptable. The play calling seems very frustrating. But you and I and the Broncos and Bears are in a similar situation right now where, of course, everything's about Caleb Williams and Bo Nix. And maybe the expectations for the two teams going into the season were different enough. But if Bo Nix would have gone out, let's say today, and throw for 363 yards, obviously 52 dropbacks is way too many, but also throw a touchdown pass and then throw 2 touchdown passes. And now Caleb's the only rookie quarterback that has thrown a touchdown pass right now in the NFL because Bo Nix didn't throw one today. But if he would have gone out and had that day, yes, it would have been a bummer that the Broncos didn't get the win. But I think Broncos country would be like, man, at least Bo looked great. And honestly, that would kind of be a moral victory. Now, there are no moral victories. I get that. But this whole season for the Broncos is about developing Bo Nix. And as long as he looks like the guy, then it's a successful season regardless of the record. The next year, the record kind of kicks in. Is that not the case with the Bears and Caleb? Is it more about just winning and getting the wins this year than necessarily just looking at Caleb and seeing he's a success?
No, it's a good point, Zach. And I will say this is why we always start our CHGO Bears post-game shows with an instant reaction from myself. And that's actually where I went. I mean, despite how frustrating this game was, it was a very positive thing to see Caleb and Rome Odunze, because this is another thing. The Bears are sort of in this luxurious situation where they had 2 top 9 picks, and in almost any other franchise around the league right now, similar to, I always bring this up with Bo Brack, who's going to join us here in a second from PHNX. You know, all they talk about right now is Marvin Harrison Jr. If Caleb Williams wasn't here, that would be the same situation in Chicago. It'd be all about Rome Odunze. So to see him take that step forward, those two things were really positive today. Now, the Caleb numbers are somewhat misleading because he did rack, similar to Dak, a lot of those yards came late. The Bears did have a late score. They were down a couple scores. They gave themselves sort of a chance to get back in it and make it a one-possession game. So there was some garbage time numbers in it. There was also a Hail Mary right before halftime. This is another Bears specialty. Second time in like 8 years, I think it is, they've caught a Hail Mary at the 1-yard line, but not scored. So they've actually caught the Hail Mary, but short of the end zone. That's another thing that they love to do to their fan base. So there were some kind of garbage yards in there. That being said, there was also, a couple deep balls that I feel very strongly just have watched so much Caleb Williams. There's some of these deep balls that he's overthrowing right now that I just know within a month from now he's going to start hitting, because he's good at that, and he's eventually going to be good at that. So I still feel very confident about where this thing's headed with Caleb. I think we just live in this anxiety world right now, which is based on 30, almost 40, maybe more than that, years of failure on offense, that when you have this much doubt already about what's happening with the play calling and the offensive coordinator, that it's just like, no matter really what the numbers say or the progress that's happening on an individual basis, you're still going, come on, how is this still happening? And I think that's really what's kind of digging in at Bears fans today. Still, it's like a lack of trust in the coaching staff, if that makes sense.
100%. And obviously that connection between a head coach and play caller with the rookie quarterback is everything. And that's why kind of Broncos have some hope, because they do believe in Sean Payton and the Bo Nix connection. And so not having that, I can totally see that being frustrating.
And just to put a bow on this game, Iisha, do you have a thought on this game too?
I was just gonna say, in a vacuum, I think that we kind of are in a microwave society when it comes to quarterback development. The expectation now is, because everyone sees these young guys come in and play well, is that everyone wants that, and it's just not realistic. And you are gonna have
Yep.
guys that are gonna take a little bit more time to develop and settle in and stuff. So it's actually kind of disappointing, to be honest, because we don't get to enjoy the development of players as much anymore and to see them progress. So, and when I look at Caleb Williams, I've watched a couple of games of his and things like that. You see him still holding on to the ball too long and stuff like that. It's like, yo, that's duh. Like, duh. Like, yeah, he's going to do that for a while until he finds some comfort. But I think you guys actually getting a better run game going would definitely be helpful for a young guy like him. Is that something that you're looking for you guys to open up a little bit more?
Well, and that goes back to the frustration. I think, Fran, you touched on this too. I mean, this was a Colts team that gave up 164 rushing yards to the Packers in the first quarter last week. And the Bears couldn't get the Bears really just looked. It's such a disappointment right now, and they were also involved in the Saquon Barkley sweepstakes. They, eventually, I think that just reached a number where they didn't feel comfortable going. They sort of settled on DeAndre Swift, who I'm actually interested, Fran, in your take on DeAndre Swift, because right now, to this point, it's been very disappointing. And I actually thought he looked great in training camp, but we're seeing once there's live bullets, his contact balance hasn't been very good. He tends to go down pretty easily. And I just don't know what's going on there, but there seems to be a disconnect in trying to get him going in the running game.
Yeah, I mean, coming in when he was in Detroit, I feel like he was such a feast or famine runner. And even when he was at Georgia, that was the same deal, right? Was that he had that ability. Yeah, maybe it would go 0 yards, but he could break that 40-yarder. He could break that 65-yarder. Well, with the Eagles last year, I thought that he was much more disciplined than I expected. And I was actually pretty impressed with his running style. But over the course of time, as the season went on, it's week 6, week 7. It's like, where are the yards that you are creating for yourself? And that was what was really missing from that offense a year ago. And honestly, even going back to Miles Sanders in the years before that, is that those guys could pick up what the offensive line and what the system had allowed those guys to get, but they weren't creating yards for themselves. And that's why they made the decision to go for Saquon Barkley. And then you get games like today, where Saquon, when you most need it, you don't have AJ Brown, Devontae Smith goes down. Here goes Saquon out the back door for 65 yards and a touchdown. That's the dimension that was not brought to this offense a year ago with DeAndre Swift.
We all silly like the mayor.